Hi, I'm Kim Dickerson, and this is my Week 2 video reflection. I chose to discuss the organization of quadrilaterals. That was one of our prompts. And first, I organized them in the way that I was taught in high school and the way that I usually teach my students when I teach geometry. The idea is that quadrilaterals are broken up into 4 basic categories. Either it's a kite, or a trapezoid, a parallelogram, or it's something else. It doesn't have any of those specific characteristics. Now, within the parallelograms, we can go a little bit more specific. We can have rectangles and rhombuses. And when I have, or rhombi, I should say, and when I have both characteristics at the same time, that's when I have a square. So I have this Venn diagram overlap to show that. That's what I teach. That's what I was taught. So when the textbook that we read this week organized the quadrilaterals in a very different way, I was very confused. I was like, what? No, how in the world are you going to use that? It didn't make any sense to me. So I read it again, I was like, okay, I think I understand. I would like to try to classify and organize those shapes by that definition. So I came up with this, and let me show you the rough draft before that. I tried with some boxes and overlapping of boxes, and that didn't work because eventually I was going to need the kites and the parallelograms to overlap, and this wasn't happening. And I was struggling with, wait, does that mean trapezoids are kites and kites are trapezoids? I was like, no, because when that happens, what do I have? And it was hard to understand that in my brain. I tried the regular circle overlapping Venn diagram, and again, this didn't work for me because I broke the trapezoids down into the isosceles trapezoids and the parallelograms. But again, eventually in the book's classification, the isosceles trapezoids have to intersect the kites to eventually make a square. So I was like, okay, this doesn't work either. What if I try a 3-part Venn diagram? And so I ended up with this. And I used the colors because I think I figured out what I don't like about this. And the colors helped me see that. So here we go. First off, we see the 3-part Venn diagram, but then you see this overarching trapezoid. Now, here's the question, where exactly is the bottom of the trapezoid big circle? I would argue I should have like another curve right here to finish off the circle. But that would imply that trapezoids and kites overlap they overlap, and there is a special name for that, and there isn't. According to the book's classification, as long as I have a trapezoid and a kite, that only happens when I have a square. So I would argue that would mean that my trapezoid circle would do something like this. So it's not really a circle, it's more of like an upside down heart shape. Something like that instead. So that's awkward, first off. It's like, no, Venn diagrams are nice circles. Like, that's weird. So I don't like that. I would think that would be hard to explain to students. Then, what else I don't like about it? So first off, I'm like, okay, some of these make sense to me. If I have an isosceles trapezoid and a parallelogram, first of all, both of them are in the realm of trapezoids. But if I have them both, that's when I have a rectangle. Then, I also have kites, which are not directly classified as trapezoids. When I have a kite and a parallelogram, that's when I have a rhombus. And then the book also says, well, if I classify even further, if I have all the characteristics of a rectangle and a rhombus, that's when I have a square. That one is similar to what I have up here in my little Venn diagram. So I'm like, okay, rectangle and rhombus, that's when I get a square. And so that means that a square is considered a trapezoid, an isosceles trapezoid, a parallelogram, a kite, a rectangle, and a rhombus. So a square has all of the classifications. But here's the other reason, the big reason why I do not like this. Notice I have this green region, this question mark. I use the colors because usually with Venn diagrams we see that, and we see the primary colors used, so when we have the overlap we can see the secondary colors used. So we know that the yellow isosceles trapezoids and the red parallelograms make the orange rectangles. Blue and red make purple. Yellow and blue make green. We have a separate name for that color. That overlap has a separate name for what that is. And when I have all 3 overlapping, that's when I have this weird conglomerate brown color going on for all 3 primary colors. But notice in my color work here, there is a separate name for this region. That region is the yellow and the blue, the isosceles trapezoids, and the kites. That would imply to me that I should have another quadrilateral name for that space. but I don't. I don't feel comfortable with that. What it is, and I went through the definitions of an isosceles trapezoid and a kite, it's a square. Like, that's the only classification that we're given. So this whole region right here is for squares. But that's really weird in a Venn diagram to talk about because we see that square is already the 3-part overlap, but it's also only the 2-part overlap. I think I would feel a lot more comfortable with this classification system if there was a new word for the isosceles trapezoid and kite combination. But I don't think it's possible because I couldn't think of an example where I had both of these characteristics but didn't end up with a square. I couldn't think of it. So I don't like that I can't organize my quadrilaterals in a nice chart like this. My students are very visual, and the chart that was given in the book with the like those type of deals, and you would classify and classify, the fact that they like would split off and then they came back together the way the book classified the quadrilaterals, I think that would really throw off my students. So I'd really rather give them a picture, but I don't think this picture is any more helpful. So that's why I think I would tend to teach it this way instead. I understand where the book is coming from, but I really think this is adding some confusion that isn't necessary. So yeah, that's my video reflection on the classification of the quadrilaterals, the way I teach it, and I had learned it myself, and the way that the book did it this week.